In this video, we're going to pick up right where we left off, counting and summing. All right, so I shortened the example a little bit, particularly right up in here. I just used constants. Turns out if you're going to generate numbers from starting at 1 and ending at a particular value, then you can just put that end value as the bound to next in and add the minimum, which is 1. All right, so this is a shortcut that allowed me to tighten up the code a little bit. I also took out the extended output here inside the loop. All right, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I had a mistake, right? Because I wanted to have that's odd come out on the same line as the rand value, and turns out when it's not odd, when it's even, the output continues. All right, so what we have to do here is we need an else clause to fix this, in which you have to end this line. When you use print, you have to think about where are you subsequently going to end the output line. And in this case, we're going to end the line when we don't end it another way. So we're going to print rand val is some value, and then either we're going to print that's odd or we're going to print nothing. But one way or the other, we have to end the line that's left off on line 14. All right, so when you use print, you have to think about how you're going to end the line later in the program. Let's see what it looks like now. There we go. There we go. And that's a little better. All right, so a little easier to read. All right, we just have a message next to numbers that are odd, and it's very easy to see that the result is correct. Okay, 4 again, 6, but they're all 6 in a row. 6, but they're spread out. 5, and so forth. Right. So what if we now want to do something else? So we want to now add up some values. Let's start a different example here. Let's say let's change num to generate to 5. All right, so I want to add up 5 numbers from 1 to 10. All right. So the setup is very similar. You'll name the variable a little differently because you're not counting anymore. You're summing. All right, so call it sum or total. All right. Just like a count, a total will also start at 0. We sometimes call this an accumulator because it's going to accumulate a result. Count is an accumulator also, but it's just accumulating by 1. So these are both types of accumulators. So go to the loop again for int n. I keep it short. N equals 0, n less than num to generate. And notice I'm reusing the variable here, so I did not put int at the beginning of the line, because you only do that the first time you use it. And plus plus. And you put braces at the end of the header, and that's a good compile point, because I've written a couple of statements, and a loop header. That's enough to ask the compiler, hey, is this much right? And no news is good news, so we continue. So let's start by just adding up everything. All right, so I'll print the number. And we'll say the rand val is, oh, we haven't generated it yet. Okay, we have to generate the rand val. It's generated up here. Well, that's going to work the same. But let's change it to numbers from 1 to 10. That'll make it easier to see. All right, now, so that generates, this generates, generate 5 numbers. Oh, there we go. Okay. I have to recompile. All right, so there we go. All right, this from the first part of the program. This is there were 5 odd values is coming from here. I need another line break before this starts. So I'm going to put another line break there. That'll give me a blank line separating the number of odd values that really goes with what's above from this new problem down here. It's important to look at your output and check that it's clear and readable and makes sense. Okay, so here's 5 random numbers from 1 to 10. So I want to add those up. And want the total to be in total. You can only add one at a time because you only have one number at a time to deal with. If you had 5 variables, you could say val 1 plus val 2 plus val 3, but you don't have separate variables for all these things. So you can only add one at a time. You do that in a very similar way that you increase a loop variable by a different step. So I'm going to say total plus equals the random value. Okay, so what this does, it increases the total by that amount. Now, you may be familiar with the plus equals from some of your loops that you've written that go up by more than 1. Okay, it can also be used in this way to add a number to a running total. So that's really what this is. It's a running total. And we can check that that compiles. It's not going to show us anything different yet because I haven't output it. Just like with a count, right, you show your sum when you're finished the loop. So I need to find the end of the loop. Okay, so there's the brace that closes the loop. It's on the same line as the header. I want to go after that and print total is total. And we take a look. The total is 30. And is it? Well, you get a calculator and add them up or do it in your head. That's what? 3 and 8 is 11, plus 6 is 17, 24 plus 6 is 30. Maybe easier to see if we change the number of values that we're generating. Let's bring it down to 3. Or even, let's just say 2. 2. 10 and 4 is 14. Okay. We're pretty confident 1 and 7 is 8. Right. And go to 3. So I made a change in the program. I have to recompile. Now, 3 numbers. 19, sure. Right. So once you're convinced that you're getting the right value, right, then you can go on to the next step. So it's easy to show how counting and summing work with random values, but very often you want to process user input. All right, say for example, I want to add up some values from the. I want an adding machine. Right, so I'm going to enter a bunch of numbers and have the program tell me what they are, but it can be a different number of values each time. If it was always 3 numbers, you'd already know how to write that program. That would be declare 3 variables, enter them, and add them up, show the sum. But if it's a different number of numbers each time, well then you have to ask the user, and the only way to do that is to use then a loop, right, to do a changing number of values to add up. All right, so let's see how that would work. All right, so I'm going to ask and let's put an extra line ending here. how many values to add up. And now our int num to add up is going to come from the user. Right, so this is where we use the scanner, and now we still need a variable. I could reuse total. All right, I'm going to use a different one. Let's say int sum of user values. All right. It's still going to start at 0 because I haven't begun taking any numbers yet. Nothing to add up, so it's 0. Before you start adding, your total is 0. Now I start the loop, and this is my loop bound. So this is just like asking the user for how many times you want to execute something. In this case, what the something is going to be reading a number and accumulating it into this variable here. All right, so my loop will look like this for int n is 0, n less than num to add up, n plus plus, and braces. I like to compile there. I like to compile when I put in braces because by that point I've added several statements that I haven't compiled, and I want to see if they're right. Or at least I want to see if they compile. Okay, so no news is good news. And go on. All right, so in this loop, I have to get a number from the user. All right, so in the first two examples, we were generating random numbers. All right, but want to add up numbers from the user, we have to do a two-step process here. We have to say, enter a value and say what that is, and then receive it into a variable. Right, so let's see if that works. Right, it compiles. Right, so now we should be able to have a program that we say how many numbers to add up, and it'll ask us for the numbers, for that many numbers. Let's try it with a different number. Okay, so whatever number I say here, it'll ask for that many numbers. That's the number I want to add into this running total. This is my running total variable. So I'm going to use that same operator, right, to increase it by whatever the number was that was input previously. So I'm saying input values plus equals the value. Now I want to show this, but I want to show it after I'm finished entering all the numbers. You can show it in the loop, but it's usually more of interest to show the sum after you've gotten all the numbers. All right, so we'll show it here after the loop. And let's take a look at that. Recompile. How many values to add up? Let's start with 2. 6 and 4. Sum is 10. Did the right thing. How many values to add up? Say 3. 4, 3, and 7. Should be 14, and it is. So, and then now you have a general purpose adding machine that you can use to add up any number of values. In the next video, we'll look at some applications of counting and summing, including averaging and growth tables.